Hello, and welcome to today's session of Inner Evolution series. I am Daya Samuel once again, and here on my channel, I help you with I take on subjects related to personal transformation, mental and emotional well-being, and a shift to higher consciousness. Basically, what I do here is to help you become more of who you truly need to be rather than what you've been told to be or who you've been told to be. I am Dario Samuel once again, and you are welcome to today's session of this series. And at this point, if you can hear me, let me know in the comments below that you can hear me. I'll need to adjust my lighting a little to be sure that everything is looking great. Don't mind me, I adjusted some things between yesterday and now, so the settings may have changed a little. So hopefully it's going to look great. And at this point, let me quickly confirm that everything else is working fine. It's been an interesting journey in the last couple of days since the 20th, which happens to be about 4 days ago. It's been a really amazing journey. Every night like this, we come together and have this conversation, some of the conversations that many of us don't like to have anyway, the kind of conversation that you will have, and at the end of that conversation, you'll be like, what? Why haven't I thought about this all this while? So that's what we are doing right about now. At this point, let me quickly jump onto my channel and check on my phone here so that I can confirm that the live stream is going great. Okay, it's appearing to work fine today. There's one question that has been on my mind in the last couple of days. I don't know why. Every time I stream without Zoom, I noticed the night that I streamed with Zoom, the entire stream was very clean. But anytime I stream without Zoom, this particular platform, there seemed to be some reduction in the quality of video. And I'm wondering why. Maybe today, maybe I'm going to be able to figure out why. But up to now, I've not been able to figure out why yet. I know what's going on with that. If you are just joining me, thank you very much for joining me. Tonight, we are continuing the conversation on inner evolution. And tonight, we want to look at how fear plays out in your personal evolution. How fear plays out in your personal evolution. And particularly, I want to take this conversation because a lot of times, what's his name? Okay, great. I just remembered. Paulo Coelho said that what many of us have the potential to become great, but what stands between us and the greatness that we want to become is the fear that we all experience. And I've seen this fear play out in a lot of people's lives. Personally, in my own life, I remember back in 2012 when I first found out that I would really like to be a podcaster. I really like to produce podcast content. I really like to produce content where I utilize my voice. And of course, at that point, I had come to the awareness that if you write something, people may not be able to grasp the full message you are trying to pass. But once there is some element of voice or maybe video, it gets to become more meaningful to people. So I found that was more engaging than writing. So I wanted to utilize that format as a way to communicate, as a way to share my message with the world. And between 2012, I remember the date specifically, February 28th, 2012. And interestingly, that day, this was the book I was reading. This was the book I was reading that day. It actually is Becoming a Coaching Leader by Daniel Hackerly. That was the book I was reading that day. And from that point till 2014, I couldn't publish a single episode of my podcast. Why? Because I was totally afraid. I was so fearful to the point that I will record my podcast and I'll not be able to listen to myself. Why? Because I was afraid. I was wondering, who would like to listen to this guy's voice? Who would like to listen to me the way I sound? Of course, partly because I didn't believe in myself, partly because I had fear, but the biggest part of it was the fact that I didn't fully trust myself to express the way that I wanted to express myself there. So I want to quickly post these. So it happened that having discovered podcast, and for 2 straight years I couldn't launch a podcast. By the time I eventually decided I was going to publish a podcast, it was almost like it was, well, not exactly too late, but I found by the time I eventually decided I was going to. Okay, so it's obvious my mic is not working. So let me quickly correct that. So it's obvious not working. Okay, good. So at this point, I've switched mic. So hopefully the mic will be working better now. So let me quickly confirm that. So let me quickly confirm that my mic is working. Okay, great. So at this point, my mic is beginning to work right now. So I just saw that my channel is now 501 subscribers. Wow, that's very interesting. So I finally broke through that barrier. So welcome. So today I'm going to be sharing from my own personal experience of what I have experienced when it comes to fear. And I'm going to be sharing with you particularly how fear plays out in your personal evolution. Now, if you remember the other day, we looked at the conversation of beginning your inner evolution, and the next day we discussed the personal evolution model. And the third day we talked about dominion and systems thinking, how systems thinking can help your personal evolution. And then yesterday, which is the fourth day, we have tried though. Yesterday, which is the fourth day, we talked about if I can remember clearly, we talked about yesterday we talked about, so let me quickly copy. We talked about guides and gurus and the kind of persons you follow in your journey to become all you want to be. Today, we are looking at how fear plays out in this journey of of personal evolution, in this journey of self-actualization. How does fear play out? And of course, maybe you're just getting to know me. Well, I happen to create a system called the Fear Resolve process. The Fear Resolve process is a 5 part program. Particularly, being a 5 part program simply means that there are 5 things that come together inside the Fear Resolve process. But the Fear Resolve process works as a 2 days intensive program. It's a full day program from morning till night for 2 days, 2 straight days. And by the end, people live there becoming limitless, becoming courageous, becoming totally the kind of person they are want to take on the world. I'm going to share one of such testimonies today. I wish I had more testimonials prepared, but I'm just going to share one of them. I have dozens of testimonials. In fact, if you look at my channel, you'll find a particular playlist called the Fear Resolve Testimonials. Those are testimonials coming directly from the Fear Resolve process. And I hope that this is going to be of great benefit to you. So let's start this conversation from here. Nathaniel Brandon once said that of all the judgments that we pass in life, none is as important as the one we pass on ourselves. For that judgment touches the very center of our existence. Of all the judgments that we pass in life, none is as important as the one we pass on ourselves. For that judgment touches the very center of our existence. A lot of times, we are quick to point fingers at what someone is not doing well. But whenever we point fingers at what, sometimes we can't see that we are not doing well. But when we decide to point fingers at ourselves that we are not doing well, we do it in a very, very derogatory manner. We do it in a way that robs us of self-esteem, robs us of self-value, robs us of self-worth. But when we are doing it to others, sometimes we can be empathetic and we don't want to we don't want to be completely bizarre about it.
So we become political, we become diplomatic about judging other people. And when we do it to ourselves, we simply just become brutal with ourselves. This reminds me of an advert by Dove that we use in class during Fear Resolve, where we, a group of women, were asked to, a group of women were asked to write down their thoughts, the kind of things they say to themselves. And then they now flipped the script. By flipping the script, they simply got actors to enter into those characters and say those things around the women who were saying them. One particular woman said that you have teeth like a vampire, something like that, and that you, another said that your legs are so somehow. And then one of the women who had written her thoughts down could not take the conversation when it was happening. So when the woman mentioned what she used to say to herself, she quickly snapped and said, Man, that is too violent. Why are you saying that to that person? Of course, she didn't know that that actor had picked up her own script and acting it where she was. And when she said that, the thing they wrote on the screen, if my memory serves me right, what they wrote on screen is, if it is violent to other people, how much violence are you taking out on yourself? So a lot of times we judge ourselves in a very, very brutal manner. We judge ourselves in ways that, in fact, if other people judge us that way, we'll most likely let heaven and earth fall down so that we can defend ourselves. And so when we look at the personal evolution path the personal evolution model that I shared with you the other day, that there is remember that personal evolution, of course, the start is the programming or the conditioning. I was listening to somebody some days ago and he said that the word programming appears like somebody was forcing you to do it, like it was forced, while conditioning appears a little interesting in the sense that it's quite easy on the ears. But what I want you to notice here is programming or conditioning. It first of all starts with family. So we get our first level of programming from our family. The next level comes from our religion. And in fact, today I posted something on my Instagram handle about religion. I posted it as well on my WhatsApp status, and the kind of conversations it has generated, I'm like, okay, it looks like I've touched some strings. So family comes first as the conditioning that we first of all enter into in our lives. Then religion comes next. Then after religion, our learning, our education comes next as the conditioning, because the things we learn early enough in our lives kind of shapes our decisions at later ages, at later stages of our lives. And then after learning, the society that we grew up to also condition us. And then, of course, workplace is the fourth. Now, I'm going to take the first three, which is family, religion, and learning. So if you start with family and you want to be able to break through what your family or the conditioning or the programming that you have received from your family, one of the first things you will ever encounter is fear. Now, if you even successfully break through that conditioning and you get to the level of religion and you want to break through that one for religion, the conditioning, the programming that religion has created in your life, again, you will encounter fear. And it appears to me that fear seems to be one of the core characteristics of each level of our personal evolution. We get to experience fear at every single level. So that calls for a question. How about we deal with our relationship with fear so that we can completely understand how fear truly plays out in our in our personal evolution journey, in our self-actualization journey? And that's exactly what I want to share with you today. So, first thing that I will mention here is what I refer to as the fear quadrant. Let me bring it on screen here so that you can see it right here. So, what I want to first of all start this conversation with is what I call the fear quadrant. And when I talk about the fear quadrant, I'm referring to the four core areas of our lives that fear influences. The first one is the area of health. And when fear affects the area of our health, it basically alters our wellness and our well being. And of course, you remember I mentioned earlier on that on this channel, on this podcast, on this show, what I do is to help you take charge of your mental and emotional wellness, of your mental and emotional well being. So when fear takes over or when fear affects your health or well, it begins to show up in your well being. Secondly, is fear can influence your wealth. And when it influences your wealth, it tends to affect your status in the sense that a fear kind of determines how high you want to rise, or you want to determine how humble you want to be, how low you want to be, or how high you want to rise. Then next, upwards to this quadrant is the fear that touches on our religion. And when fear touches on your religion, it basically affects the significance or how significant God can be in your life. And so, with the question of religion, as I mentioned earlier on that I posted today on my Instagram, if you want to check out my Instagram, that is I am Dio Samuel. That's my Instagram. You can check that out. Now, when fear influences your religion, when fear becomes religious, it affects the significance. It affects how you begin to look at yourself in the sense that you look at yourself through the lens of, is my life truly significant? Do I truly have something? In fact, you may want to attempt certain things and you'll be feeling like, no, I can't try this thing. No, 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 no. That is fear showing up in religion. Now, the next part on the bottom part of this quadrant is relationships. Now, fear shows up in your relationships. And when fear shows up in your relationships, it literally affects your emotions. And so, if you look at it, there's fear affecting the area of health, there's fear affecting the area of wealth, there's fear affecting the area of religion, and there's fear affecting the area of relationships. Now, there is a way these four different quadrants, there's a way they kind of connect together. Now, if fear affects your health, and the fear is also affecting your religious view, you will tend to have this sense of ruin, like your life is about to be destroyed. So, anytime fear plays out in your wellness or in your religion, the idea that you will carry at the back of your mind will be that if I do this thing, I may lose my life. That is the meaning of ruin in this case. So, you get to have this sense of ruin, like anything, if this fear plays out too much, it ruins your well-being. Then next, if fear affects your health and your relationships, of course, because of fear playing out in your health, you may feel rejected in relationships. And if fear shows up in your relationship, you may want to reject your health. Do you get that? So this second phase is that of rejection. And when I say rejection, what I'm referring to is the fact that I'm going to give a little case point here, or a little scenario here. When you get into a relationship, when you get into a relationship and the relationship is going on smoothly, that is relationship, right? Now, if your significant other begins to act a certain way and the relationship suddenly comes to an end, now that is a relationship. Now, even when the relationship has not come to an end yet, the moment the relationship starts being pulled apart in some ways, fear begins to set in. And when fear begins to set in, it begins to make you uncomfortable in the sense that it begins to affect how you think, it begins to affect even your mental and emotional state. That is what I mean by the rejection. Now, the rejection is coming from the fact that you feel like a relationship is threatened, and so it's beginning to affect your health. So, fear can show up as rejection, especially in the area of your health and in the area of your relationships. Now, the third area that fear shows up, especially in this quadrant, is that of regret. And when I say regret, if you toe the line of wealth at the detriment, and this is basically an ideology here, okay? If you toe the line of wealth at the detriment of the significance of religion, sometimes you may feel like you're cheating yourself because you don't, or like some people will say, you have taken out the God factor. The other flip side is that if you toe the line of religious significance and you don't build wealth, you also regret the fact that you have committed your life so much to that area and then you have left this other area. So, a lot of times, when fear influences our religious perspective and our relationship with wealth, it shows up as a regret. We begin to resent the things we did or the things we didn't do. In fact, there's a way I used to say that, say, whatever it is you do or you don't do, someone's life is being changed by it. And sometimes that someone can be you. So whatever you do or you don't do, your life is being changed. You may not just be aware your life is being changed. Now, moving forward to the last part of this quadrant, is when fear influences wealth and fear influences relationships. What happens in that point? You become scared of responsibility. Now, in the area of relationships, if you are afraid of relationships, you are not afraid of relationships per se. You are simply afraid of the responsibility that comes with relationship. If you're afraid of success, you're afraid of wealth, you're afraid of being stupendously rich, you are not afraid of money or wealth per se. You are simply afraid of the responsibility that comes with wealth, the responsibility that comes with relationships. Now, in the framework that I teach, there's something I call deepening relationships. And when I say deepening relationships, I'm referring to the layers of relationships, the layer of relationships, how relationships go from just peripheral surface to deep surface. Okay, maybe I should do a little sketch of that on my screen right now so that you will see what that means. So let me show you what that means. So let me bring up my pen here. Let me bring up my pen here. This may change how you view relationships. So here is what I want you to notice here. So I'm going to draw it like this. Every relationship passes through this anyway. So, oh my. So let me bring that back. So it appears I need to align this very well in order to be able to. So that's one. So this is one. This is two, and then this is three, and then four. So at this level, I usually refer to this as artificial. Okay, so let me change my pen. Okay, let me complete it first. Artificial. That's what I refer to this as. I should be able to find this slide somewhere. I have this slide somewhere, if I'm correct. I should be able to find it somewhere. Okay, maybe I should stop sharing and then quickly bring it back on my screen and see. Okay, so while I'm waiting to bring it up, let me just continue because I might not easily find it. So I'm calling this part artificial, and what that means is every relationship every relationship, whether it is with a spouse, especially when it has to do with a spouse, usually passes through these four different phases. So first, it starts with artificial, and at the artificial level, it is basically focused on appearance. So what you are focused on at that point is appearance. You are simply measuring on how the person looks, how the person looks to you. Then, secondly, you come to the second level, which I call affection. This second level, I call it affection. So, this second level, I call it affection. And this is the level where you get to engage some emotions. So, this is where emotions begin to come in. And please, if you are with me, please leave a comment. Let me know that you are live with me right now. So the second stage is emotions. Now, what this means is that first of all, you get attracted to somebody on the basis of their appearance. Then affection begins to set in. At that point, it begins to mix with your emotions. Now, as you move further, because you need to also understand that every relationship passes through stages. But if you don't know that your relationship is supposed to pass through stage, you may want to jump the gun. And so at the third level is what I call attachment. So this third level, I call it attachment. Let me dot the T very well. So at this third level, I call it attachment. And this is that level where you simply just want to protect the person you're in a relationship with. So this is the level where protection simply starts getting into that relationship. So you do things in order to protect the other person. You do things in order to, because you have the good or you have the best interest of that person at heart. But then the relationship goes deeper than that. At the final level of relationship, this is where you get to the level that I refer to as authentic. This is the level where you get to where I refer to as, where's my pen? This is the level where you get to where I refer to this level as authentic. So let me dot this I here so that it's clear that it's I that I've drawn. So at this level of authentic, what's happening? This is where relationships begin to become powerful. This is where relationships begin to become powerful. Do you get it now? But your relationship will need to. So where's my marker? Let me pick my marker here. Let me pick my highlighter here. Your relationship needs to first of all start from here. If you are not attracted to the person, somehow it's going to show up in the affection. It may not show up at first, but it will eventually show up later on. Now, after developing affection, you get to the point where there's some element of attachment. You want to protect this person. You have the best interest of this person at heart. And then you get to the fourth level, which is the level I call authentic. At this level of authentic relationships, this is that point where you become vulnerable with the other person. At that point, you are not holding anything back. At that point, you are able to get into this kind of relationship where the two of you are able to be yourself. There's no pretense. There is no this person is this and I am this. This is my own space and that person, this is that person's space. If you are getting that in your relationship, which is an element of fear anyway, because when we look at the 7 different fears that people usually face or the 7 common fears that people experience. So one of them is the fear of how should I say now? The fear of intimacy, which is where they don't want people to come into their lives or into their space for the fear of vulnerability, for the fear of not for the fear of not wanting to open up that aspect of their lives simply because they want to protect their space. So perhaps you have gotten so much into a relationship with yourself that relationship becomes so powerful that in order for you to open up to another person, it begins to become a threatening situation. And it is very understandable, okay? But you need to also understand that when your relationship is like this, it is coming from a place of responsibility. If you don't want to open up, if you don't want to give people space in your life like that, it is coming from the place of responsibility. You are most likely afraid of the responsibility that will come with the relationship, or you're afraid of the responsibility that is going to come with wealth. At this point, let me pause here and ask, are you getting me at all? Is this becoming clear at all? Please leave a comment, let me know. Does this make sense to you at all? What have you, is it meaningful to you in any way? Please let me know, let me know, let me know. Let me know. I'm considering changing this to, okay, let me leave it like this way. So, is that meaningful to you at all? Please leave a comment. Let me know that it it is probably making sense to you in any way. So, in case you are hearing my own voice, it's because the I'm checking the live video here on YouTube so as to be sure that everything is working. Okay. So moving forward from there, moving from here, it's important to understand that awareness is power. When you become aware of what's going on in your life, you simply come to that point where you have power. I make this statement in my class in the fear resource. I always make this statement that the fear you do not understand, you cannot overcome. And when I say the fear you do not understand, you cannot overcome, it simply refers to the fact that in order to overcome something, you first of all need to go under it and stand. So if I were to stand on this table that I am using right now, let me zoom out a little so that you can see the table a little. Let me zoom out so that you can see the table. So let's say I want to stand on this table. Let's say I want to stand on this thing here right now. If I'm going to stand on this thing, I need to first of all check what is under, right? I need to first of all be sure of what is underneath. So if I'm going to stand on this table, something is to, if I'm going to come on this stand here, I need to first stand under it, right? Or something is to stand under it in order for me to come on top it. Do you get that? So if you want to overcome something, you need to first understand that thing. When you don't understand something and you want to overcome it, it simply just creates fear. And when I say fear, many of the fears people have are coming are fears that stem from a place of not understanding what is going on with them. Hey, Tella, thank you. Says yes, it is clearer. Amazing, amazing. So the fear people have most times is not coming from what they know, it's coming from what they don't understand. So our awareness is power. When fear is outside of our awareness, it grows stronger and influences areas of our lives and personality. And in extreme cases, fear simply just takes over us entirely. And you don't want that to happen, do you? You don't want fear to take you over, do you? Which is why it is very important you understand how fear plays out in your personal evolution, in your journey of self actualization. Now, here's a testimonial I said I was going to share. So, this was sent in by Alfred. He said, the consequence of not getting what I want or need can be very painful sometimes. I've got plans, desires, and expectations. Sometimes I try so hard to make things happen and ensure my expectations are met, but my expectations are truncated by fear. I have been a prisoner of my fear. I have fear for many things, including things that naturally shouldn't be scary. I had a very rough background. I was psychologically abused while growing up, and that was the beginning of everything. And then I enrolled for the fear resolve process, which put an end to every form of fear. Before the program, I had a lot of issues with myself. I so much enjoyed loneliness. I find it very hard to let things go among many other things. All of these have been a thing of the past because I've learned and grown past my fear through the fear resolve process. I have stopped living a life of tension, torment, and anxiety. The most challenging part of the program was when we were asked to appreciate ourselves. Really? It was so challenging for me because I really couldn't think of me praising myself. And now it has become a part of me. And now I feel like a newborn baby. I would like to say a very big thank you to Dio Samuel and his beautiful wife, Isaiah, for a well done job. And now I can confront my fear because it poses no threat. This was a testimonial sent in by Alfred. And just as it was for Alfred, he was battling fear, but he didn't understand what was going on. And just as I said earlier on, the most important way to overcome fear is not by looking for some form of motivation. It is basically by looking for some form of understanding. As I said earlier on, the fear you do not understand, you cannot overcome. If you want to overcome any fear at all, it begins first by understanding that fear. Now, case in point, let me illustrate this a little for you. You remember some days ago, I shared the story of my addiction with masturbation, right? I said I began this journey simply because I wanted to be able to understand what was going on with me and be able to help myself. And through that, I became empowered in the process. Of course, part of it was I became certified as a life coach. Part of it was that I became certified in neuro-linguistic programming. Part of it was that I enrolled in neuroscience and neuromarketing with one school in Denmark or Germany or so. And then another was I enrolled in a program by John Asaraf. As I kept doing all of that, I began to understand myself a lot more. And so, as understanding began to creep in, the hold of that addiction on me began to loosen gradually. And that is the same ideology I have about fear. The fear you do not understand, you cannot overcome. Alfred, in this case, was battling this fear for a long time. Of course, he was psychologically abused. And as I always say, all fear begins one day. You were not born with many of the fears you have today. Many of the fears you currently battle with were learned day one way, somehow you learned it. And of course, because of the process of mastery, you learned it so much that over time it has now become a part of you. It has now become a second nature to you. And so now it's easy for you to act out any fear, even without direct conscious thinking, without direct conscious awareness. You can act out any fear that you have. But it started somewhere. It started some way. It started somehow. You were not born with that fear. And so, in order to truly get over that fear, in order to overcome that fear, in order to conquer that fear, what you need is understanding. I know a lot of times we get to see motivation, and a lot of motivational speakers try to charge us that we should get over our fear. You should do it afraid. You should overcome it. Truth is, yes, fear is easy to overcome through motivation. That's true. I'm not disputing that. In fact, what happens is that when you have motivation to overcome fear, what is happening is there is some form of, I should call it a kind of distraction away from that fear. That's what motivation does. Motivation simply shifts your attention away from the actual fear so that you can move forward. But what happens is after you've moved forward, because the way the unconscious mind works, something you don't get to address, your unconscious mind presents to you again in order for you to now address it and look it in the eyes and address it. So motivation distracts you. Motivation kind of helps you overcome it on the spur of the moment, momentarily. You remember the part of leadership, right? So motivation helps you overcome fear momentarily, but at a deep level, the fear tends to surface again in the future. And when it surfaces in the future, a lot of times there's no available motivation. So at that point, you need to truly understand that fear. Because when you understand that fear, that is when you begin to overcome the fear. And talking about fear, in case you want to truly understand fear, I'm going to recommend my book, Limitless Courage and Confidence, Evidence-Based Strategies for Overcoming Fear and Living Free from Anxiety. You can get this on Amazon right now, both the hard copy and the Kindle version. Yes, I'm correct. Both the hard copy and Kindle version are both available on Amazon. So you can literally just jump on Amazon right now and get the book. Inside the book, you will understand a lot of things about how fear plays out, and in a particular place that I would like to mention here is chapter 4, where I talk about the scenarios, the 8 ways we acquired our fears, and in it I mentioned 8 ways that we acquired our fears. Number 1 is conditioned fear, and by conditioned fear, What that means is that, how should I put it now? Okay, let me read some of the lines there. It says that this is a fear that has been conditioned into us. Condition is said to take an existing stimulus and response and connect it to a new stimulus that soon causes the same response. Now, fear condition is a behavioral paradigm in which we learn to predict aversive events in order to protect ourselves. So it means that something happens regularly again and again and again. And so you use that to protect yourself. And by reason of it happening several times, it becomes conditioned. So you now try to avoid it as a reason of protection for yourself. Second way is what I call social learning. And when I say social learning, I found that spiders, snakes, darkness, also called natural fears, all of these called natural fears, which developed at a young age, were influenced by environment and culture. A young child, for example, is normally scared of spiders or snakes, but it is only from his parents and environment that you need to be scared of these things. So social learning as a way of acquiring fear comes from watching other people, hearing other people, or maybe even experiencing what other people experience. So you learned it by association. Now, number three is domestication, and domestication usually happens between parents and children. When a parent when a parent forces their children to act a certain way, or do, or behave, or be in a certain way, and they do it so much that the child now gets used to that way, that child becomes domesticated. And so that child can, in that case, become a product of who they want that child to be, not the person who the child truly wanted to be. That's number three. Number four way we acquire fear is through habituation. And habituation simply means that as you go through life, your brain is making and recording memories that correspond to various sights, sounds, smell, taste, and movements. As it does that, it creates templates of experience against which all future experiences can be matched. So do you get that? So your brain kind of capture experiences that you go through and uses that as a predictive analytics for you. Then number five is personality traits. There are certain personalities that tend to have that tend to fear naturally. And I wrote here that some of them, I can refer to some of them as doubters and warriors, dictators and control freaks, deceivers and fakers, attention seekers and demonstrators, victims and those who feel defeated, prisoners and those who feel that they are detained or denied. And the number six way is overprotected childhood, which is similar to domestication anyway. Number seven is fear in the family. And of course, you can learn fear by association, especially with if a parent you love so much has certain fears, it is easy for you to copy or to catch that fear, especially if that fear was necessary for that parent's survival. You will pick it up without knowing that you are picking up a trait of your parent that's not going to be necessary for you. And number eight are traumatic experiences. So we can learn fear from traumatic experiences. So sometimes in our lives, we get to experience some form of trauma, and that trauma shapes our reactions and things. And through that, we learn certain fears. Now, here, this is a copy of my book here, so you can get Limitless Courage and Confidence, Evidence-Based Strategies for Overcoming Fear and Living Free from Anxiety. You can get it from Amazon right now. So I needed to explain that to you. I've talked about the different ways we acquire fears, right? The eight different ways we acquire fear. Now, at this point, let me talk about the two categories of fears that we have. All fear can be categorized into two broad categories. First is what I refer to as episodic fear. And episodic fear is that fear that's connected to our memories and the emotions encoded in that memory. Now, so we find that something that has happened in the past, we are still afraid of that thing. Now, here's what I want you to notice here. Is my marker still working? Let me check if my pen is still working. If my pen is still working, I need to mention something on this screen right here. So memory here So let's say this is memory. Now, memory on its own, that is the fear related to episodic fear, okay? So, memory on its own is an essential part of your existence. As you go through life, you acquire memories, you build memories. Your mind, your brain develops a lot of memories: sights, sounds, smell, taste, feelings, emotions, all of that. Your brain keeps acquiring them. Now, what I want to mention here for you is memory plus emotions simply shows victim. When you remember a memory, especially if it's a negative memory, and there's still some form of emotions attached to them, especially to that memory, if the memory, if the emotion is negative, associated with the negative memory, then what that means is that you are a victim to that memory. And I need to even personally write that down because that's just flowing out from me right now. So when memory, so I'm going to write it here as memory, emotions. So one, you can be victim, and number two, so when you remember a memory, when a memory is recalled, and the emotions are no longer negative, at that point, you have what I refer to as wisdom. So at that point, what you have is wisdom. When you recall a memory, when the memory comes to your mind, and what you can remember about that memory is some negative emotions, you are simply a victim of that memory. But when you recall a memory and you have very positive emotions around that memory, then that memory has become wisdom for your being. That memory has become wisdom for your brain. So, how should I write it here? So, I'm going to say negative or positive, then positive. Then, if it is negative or positive, okay, great. Great. So, you see, as I'm speaking, I'm also learning from myself. Now, episodic memory tends to form only 10% of the fears that we have. That is the fear that's connected to something in the past. Okay? Now, episodic in the sense that there are some emotions connected to some memories that we have. Now, there's the other side of fear, which is anticipatory fear. Now, anticipatory fear is the fear that is in the future, is the fear that we project into the future, is the fear that something may happen, that something might happen. It is created in our memory, it is created in our imagination. This particular fear, this anticipatory fear, is created in our imagination and it is supported by our beliefs. When you don't believe the imagination, it doesn't overpower you. But when you believe it, it sure does overpower you and it makes you feel very, very awkward. Do you get that? Now, under anticipatory fear, there are two categories of fear as well. So while anticipatory fear is the fear that is in the future, is the fear that's associated with our imagination, there's also a fear that is called evidence-based anticipatory fear. Evidence-based anticipatory fear is the fear that is in the future but is connected to the past. You hear that? So it's a fear that is associated with the future, but is still connected to the past in the sense that it is coming from a place of what is contained in some of the form of the episodic fear, but this time around it is now you are being afraid of it in the future because you have evidence for it. You have evidence for it because it is episodic. There's some memory you have for it. And then it is the Evidence-based fear tends to form only 15% of all of our fear experience. Imagination-based fear, on the other side, is the fear that is practically just within your imagination. There is no evidence present for it. In fact, this anticipatory fear, this imagination-based anticipatory fear, it is what often creates the anxiety that a lot of us get to experience, because we are just imagining that's going to happen, and it is pure imagination from the beginning to the end. It is being imagined without any evidence for it that is going to happen. So if you look at it, you find that if you look to your past, you may have been afraid of certain things simply because it happened to you, or it happened to somebody that you know, or you read or heard about it. That is some evidence, right? But when you are afraid of something that you practically have no written, spoken, heard, or read evidence for it, what do you make of that? So let me give you a little example here. But let's say you were traveling from here to another country, and you become fearful of you become fearful of traveling through flight. So you become very afraid that your flight may crash. Now, if you had heard of the story of air crashes, especially if you have seen a lot of movies where plane crashed, now, that is a good reason for you to be afraid in that context. The reason why you're afraid is because there is a lot of evidence to prove that plane crashes happen, plane hijack happens, but then you don't watch action movies, and you've not seen an aeroplane um, crash in real life, and you don't have any experience of aeroplane crashing in real life, but still you're afraid of it. What do you make of that? It becomes purely imagination based fear. It is purely anxiety that you are having. So you are the one that is projecting it into your future. And as I said in my book, I'm going to refer to my book again here. I said, don't worry about your worries. Don't This should be, okay, this is page 119. I said, don't worry about your worries. Don't give them too much attention, because they can't predict the future, and they undermine your ability to solve problems calmly. When a person is struggling with money, or a health or relationship issue, or is going through a particularly stressful time, it is normal for the brain to adopt a hyper alert or fearful stance about an unknown issue. But you must remind yourself that the future, by definition, is always unknown. This means that most of your worries are fantasies, not facts. Do you get that? Most of your worries are fantasies, they are not facts. They are fantasies in the sense that y- you are forming them in your head. You don't have sufficient evidence to prove that they are correct or that they are going to happen anyway. They are the negative predictions generated by a small area in your right prefrontal cortex that is accessing negative memories from the past. At those times, you need to exercise a small area in your left prefrontal lobe that recalls positive memories and past success stories, and then integrate them with the powerful creativity, imagination, and decision making circuits that make human being uniquely capable of altering the environment and the inner realities created by our constant changing brain. Here's the good news: 99.99% of our time, we don't just survive whatever the problem or crisis we face, we thrive. 99.99% of the time, we simply thrive. We don't just survive, we thrive. So, no matter the fear you are currently experiencing, no matter the fear you are currently facing, please understand it is either coming from a place in the past, or it's coming from your imagination. You are simply just imagining that fear, that thing is going to happen, and you probably don't have any evidence to prove that. Now, I described the evidence-based fear, that is the fear coming from something that you have evidence for in the past. I refer to it as former experience affirming reality, meaning that you have a former experience with that thing. Either it's a personal experience, a direct experience, or is a second-hand experience, the experience of someone else that you probably got yourself involved with, whether through listening to it, reading it, or watching it happen. So you could be a participant in someone's experience and still accrue and accommodate and accumulate all the emotions that person experienced. That is what happens with former experience affirming reality. The imagination based fear is what I call false evidences appearing real. So fear in this case then becomes false evidence appearing real. It is a false evidence. It doesn't really exist, but you are just feeling that it is your real. But the truth is, it is not real. It is not real in any way. So I need you to get this understanding today to understand that whether you have fears of any kind, always understand that the fear is coming either from a place of the past or the fear is simply something you are projecting onto your future. All fears come from our relationship with the past or our relationship, our imagination of the future. I think I should write that down. All fear, let me type that in the comments so that it's easier for me. All fear come from the place of relationship with the past or our imagination of the future. Even though I still had typo word, it's okay anyway. At least. Let me see. Is it editable? Okay, it's not editable. Okay. So all fear come from the place of relationship with the past or our imagination of the future. So again, I want to ask you, what are you imagining and what are you packing into your past? What are you front loading into your future? Simply because you are anxious about certain things, simply because you're afraid of certain things? Are you front loading your future with a lot of things that will create worry for you? So I think I like that. So I'm going to post it in the comment. Are you front loading your future with fear, or you simply have a backlog of fear? I'm liking the fact that plenty things are coming into okay, but backlog of fear anyway. I've always written that down before. So do you have a backlog of fear, that is fears that you've acquired that now in the past, or are you front loading your future with fear? I want you to answer that question today, and I want you to answer it as honestly as possible as you can. Because the truth is, the fear you do not understand, you cannot overcome. If you don't get completely honest with yourself about the fear, you will not be able to overcome it. You'll just be deceiving yourself. And of course, you can always look for motivation in the spur of the moment. Motivation will help you handle it. But motivation on its own will not help you when the fear surfaces again, especially in moments where there's no available motivation coming from a motivational speaker. So that's that for fear. Now, finally, let me share with you here that to overcome low self-esteem, we need to deal with the fear, conscious or unconscious. Why we have low self-esteem is because there is some fear in some way, whether conscious or unconscious, and you may not be aware of that. At this point, I'm going to bring this conversation to an end, and I'm going to simply invite you to step forward in your life right now. Where has fear been influencing you? Has fear been influencing you in the area of relationships? Has fear been influencing you in the area of wealth? Has fear been influencing you in the area of your beliefs about God? Has fear been influencing you in the area of your health? I want you to take a specific look at that today. And which of the areas that you may have noticed fear in your own life, I want you to ask yourself right now, is my fear coming from a backlog of fear, a backlog of the past, or am I simply front loading my future with fear? I want you to answer that. So if it is in the area of religion, if it is the area of relationships, if in the area of wealth, if it's the area of health, I want you to ask yourself, is my fear coming from a place of the past? Are there former experiences affirming my reality? Or there are imaginations that I'm projecting onto my future? I want you to answer that question, because once you begin to answer that question, it begins to split, it begins to, you kind of begin to, how should I say, you kind of begin to peel the layer on fear, because you then begin to open it up and begin to understand the meta dynamics of what makes up the fear that you have. I am Daya Samuel once again, and I hope that this session has been helpful to you. I truly hope that this session has been helpful to you. If it has been helpful to you, remember to hit the subscribe button. Did I just say hit the subscribe button? I don't like to say that anyway, but I've watched many videos. Remember to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you can be a part of this conversation that we are having here. I'm going to be back again tomorrow for another session. And by the time we come tomorrow, we are going to be looking at the science of self-actualization, how to get to your peak performance, how to get to your peak, to your pinnacle of achievement in life. Now, when we are going to look at that tomorrow, I'm going to talk about the way the brain works, especially when it comes to achievement. Anytime we want to go after anything, how the brain works with achievement. And then I'm going to walk you through my 3R framework of creating goals and achieving those goals. Keep a date tomorrow. Let's make it another date tomorrow. I look forward to that. It's going to be really, really, really interesting. It's going to be a deep conversation anyway. So, once again, thank you very much for joining me. I am Daya Samuel, and it's been a wonderful time sharing all of this with you in the last couple of days. I look forward to your actualization. I look forward to you reaching the fullest of your potential. I'm going to see you tomorrow when we come again for another session. So there are no questions, there are no comments, right? Great. So just to be sure that there are no questions and comments yet. So if you have questions that you would like for me to answer, please leave them in the comment, leave them in the comment section so that I can. So leave your questions. I wanted to say leave your fear for me in the comment. Well, if you can leave your fear for me in the comment, that would be great. So let me know in the comments how this has been helpful to you. I look forward to having this conversation, continuing this conversation with you in the comments. Have yourself a great time. I'll see you next time.